All right, let's go ahead and switch gears, and we'll talk about your topic. So go ahead and kick us off with the topic of the week.
So I downloaded Face app like everyone else just to fuck around with it and see what I'd look like in old age, having a good time. Heard 1% worked. Oh my God, delete it off your phone. The Russians are going to use it. And then I knew another person who was freaked out about it. So I wanted to do some research. The first thing I did was I just started reading on it, and seeing what all the concern was. So apparently the concern comes from privacy policy. The privacy policy, in short, essentially says, that we can use your pictures for advertising. We can, once you upload them to us, essentially the pictures are, it's what Instagram's stuff says. It's what Facebook stuff says. That's how Facebook can send you their memories thing, is because they're able to use your pictures. So it's very pretty standard, in my opinion. I feel like the big hoopla comes from two things. One is the tech itself. So the way the tech works is it doesn't process the image on your phone. It sends the image to a server that processes the picture and sends it immediately back to you. The reason I feel this has been such hysteria around it is because it's a small company based out of Russia who developed this app. And because of some, I think, founded and some unfounded hysteria about Russia in the media. I feel like we know they did mess with our election. We know that they've been trying to digitally fuck with us. We know that. But there's also been an exaggeration of that where everyone's a Russian spy. I feel like this is being pushed, and I feel it's a lot of hysteria when Americans don't give two shits about their internet privacy when it comes to things. We give it out constantly. Snapchat does just as much as this app does. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think we both agree that Russia, it is known that Russia did interfere with the election. It is known that Russia has, yes, like you said, messed with us in the digital space. So it's not completely unfounded that people would be suspicious of it. However, I also agree that it's been really conflated because the TOC of pretty much every app is less about what they are going to do and more about what you can't sue them for.
Exactly.
Like, they're so thorough, and it's to protect them from liability. They have to include everything for just in case. I mean, when you look at like the one side of it is they're using it to train AI. Okay, I don't really care about that. That's fine. If they want to use the pictures to train the AI so that the old age app can look better in the next generation, that's fine. If they want to use the images to sell them to make money, I have a bit more of a problem with that. It's like, if you're going to use my likeness, then I should at least get some sort of compensation for it. But it's understood, again, that most terms of conditions kind of fall in that same, like, they all are very intrusive of our privacy, yet nobody cares. If you go through the terms of conditions with a fine tooth comb of pretty much any app that people use regularly, it would trigger some red flags. Mm-hmm. Basically, this is a byproduct of just everybody's on a fad. Oh, isn't it cool? Isn't it cool? And then there's the actually person that comes in and says, actually, did you know that Russia is stealing your data? Because there's always got to be a naysayer, right? Whether it's me, whether it's you, there's always going to be somebody that's like, you guys think the Macarena is cool, but really the Macarena is lame, right? And so, like, it's of course it was going to happen. I do feel like, the word is xenophobia. I do feel like there is a little bit of, because it's Russia, because historically Russia has kind of been the bad guy in mm-hmm. our narrative, that there's a little bit more distrust towards Russians than there would be maybe a Japanese app developer that had the similar terms and conditions.
I feel, yeah. And here's my thing is, what do you think the rest of the world feels when they sign up for Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter,
Correct.
Instagram?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. Like, those terms and conditions are brutal. Snapchats are just as bad as this apps, maybe probably worse. I haven't looked into it enough, but they're just as bad. And I saw a lot of people, well, they're gonna use this to humiliate us. If you're worried about that, trust me, Americans humiliate themselves enough on social media. If that's one of your concerns, you're an idiot. Or, you know what? They're going to steal my pictures. Oh, maybe you should make them work and go to your Facebook and Instagram and your Twitter if you want them to steal your pictures. You know, like,
yeah.
I feel like I agree. It's xenophobia. And if this were an American company, no one would care about this. It wouldn't even be an issue. And I feel like I feel like in our culture, your xenophobia is okay depending on which side of the aisle you fall. So if you're on the left, you're a little more okay to be xenophobic against Russians and Israelis. If you're on the right, you can be xenophobic against Mexicans and Middle Eastern people, you know? And we're very selective from a political narrative because of media and talking heads like us, I think, you know, we form these opinions. If this were because most of the concerns I'm seeing are from, you know, like CNN and those places that have pushed Russia pretty heavily, New York Times and stuff. You're not really seeing it as much on the other side. But if this were a Iraqi app or whatever,
yes,
you know, from Iraq, this would be all over Fox News too.
You know, I think that's a really good point that you bring up. I guess in defense of my ideology specifically, I think that there is a definite xenophobia implies something that is very broad and is specifically refers to other countries. Where I am critical of the Israeli state, I think Israeli people are wonderful. You know what I mean? While I am suspicious of the Russian state, the government, I think that Russian people are probably fantastic. While I'm critical of the American government, I don't hold you responsible for what the fucking American government does. So, like, I think that politics do play a big factor in it, and I think it's less about the peoples of said country and more about the representatives of said country.
I feel like that is true to an extent, but this is a private company in Russia.
Correct.
And it is the people. And then you look at, okay, so I've been very critical of our immigration system, you know, and I feel like we do have a problem with immigration that we do need to get under control. But I'm like you. I think Mexican people are wonderful. I'm of Mexican descent. So, you know what I mean? Like, it'd be pretty hypocritical of me to say that. And, and I do feel like we do this thing where we conflate criticism of it. And I even just did it, you know, I'm like, I see this as just xenophobia. And I understand where the concern comes from. I just feel like it's hysteria, partially for clicks, because this is something that is part of the reason we're talking about it now is maybe we'll get some hits on it, you know? And you don't think some of these websites are like, oh man, if we can freak everyone out to read all the privacy concerns, it'll really help. I feel like a lot of this it's businesses being businesses, and that's what journalism is, you know, anymore. I don't know if it's anymore. I think it's always been somewhat of a business, obviously, but I feel like it's a lot of left and right about flaming fires to get ratings and clicks, you know?
Absolutely.
And I feel this is it.
Part of what has been shared a lot is a section of the terms of service, and the quote is, "You grant FaceApp a perpetual, irrevocable, non-exclusive, royalty-free, worldwide, fully paid, transferable, sub-licensable license to use, reproduce, modify, adapt, publish, translate, create derivative works from, distribute, publicly perform, and display your user content at any time, any name, username, or likeness provided in connection with your user content in all media formats and channels now known or later developed without compensation to you." So there is also, in that in itself, yes, I think that's troubling. I mean, I don't agree with that. But I also agree with you still that is almost standard procedure. I don't know that same statement wouldn't be in 50% of the apps that people download. I don't really know, because people haven't decided yet to expose other companies. I know that, the
I know
Facebook
Instagram,
privacy thing's been a big deal.
I know Instagram for a while. I don't know if they fixed it. Had this thing where the same thing where it was, we essentially own your photos. We can use them. We can use them for advertising. We can do whatever. You're on our service. You upload them. This is the transaction you partake in. So I know for a time. I don't know if it's been fixed yet. This was a thing with Instagram.
And even if these little guy Russian app developers that came up with this had nothing but pure intent, what if a government agency decides that they want to buy the technology or buy this smaller company, and now all of a sudden they're able to use everything that was compiled from this previous non-malicious intent? But again, that's all just speculative, but
Yeah.
I can understand why people are concerned. I just would encourage them to start reading the terms and conditions of everything they download.
That's the thing, is I actually think we should all be a little more concerned with our privacy. We kind of live in a weird state where it kind of feels like privacy is dead, unfortunately. And some of the stuff on Facebook and Twitter and all of them, all the American social medias, is pretty terrifying. And I'm gonna take it one step further. When you download an app on your phone, a free app specifically, but pretty much most, when you download a free app, they got to make money some way. So it's either ads, which is part, or they sell your data. They check what websites you go. They look at your patterns. That's why my wife can look at something on Pinterest. I don't even have a Pinterest account, and boom, next day it's in my Instagram account.
Right.
An ad for it. It's because they're selling your data. They already know that that's my wife. This is what she's looking at. Let's send it over to the husband's Instagram feed so he can see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is standard. And then the concern of processing at on a server, just to clarify for people, most of the servers are based in America. They're Amazon servers that they send them to. They've already investigated it, and it shows that they delete the pictures within 48 hours after you upload them. They delete them after the processing. So we've already kind of looked into it, and it doesn't seem like any of an issue. I know Congress wants to. Was it Chuck Schumer who wants the FBI to investigate?
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I think it was Schumer, but he wants the FBI to investigate the company. That being said, fine, investigate. I'm fine with that. I'm never going to be one who's going to stop the FBI from giving us more knowledge. I feel like more knowledge is great.
Sure.
But as of right now this could change. I could look back and go, man, I was an idiot. I was wrong. As of right now, I just don't see. I feel like it's because it's another country. When this privacy policy was very similar in all of our stuff, no one gave a shit about it. And to me, Facebook and Google are absolutely as much terrifying as that little company. And honestly, probably as terrifying as the entire Russian government and the American government. Those are giant companies that are terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. And just so you know, I don't know if you're aware of this, but just to kind of show that we both do kind of flip-flop on certain things. This is a Vox article that I got all of my information from in this particular circumstance, and the article is titled "Privacy Concerns over Viral Photo Apps Are Totally Valid, but They're Also Often Overblown," and then subtitled "The Panic About Face Apps' Old Person Filter Isn't Wrong Exactly, It's Just Tinged with xenophobia and devoid of context." So this editorial kind of falls on that side.
Yeah, I just say from Vox, like, as someone that, again, I hate to paint an entire organization. I have some issues with Vox, but I feel like that right there sounds pretty logical. Absolutely. There's things you can be concerned about, but it's coming from a hysteria, xenophobic place, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting conversation, and I do feel like something like Facebook has been under a lot of scrutiny lately, but not by everyone, just by the more, I guess, free-thinking, intellectual group of people. I know that I've been socially aware of it for quite a few years. I mean, they're constantly battling litigation and things like that because of privacy. So if you are one of the people that are listening to this podcast right now and you are concerned about privacy, do something about it. Don't, like Caleb, you said it right at the very beginning. We are willing to give up every bit of our privacy on our own volition and then get defensive about it when somebody says like, hey, you know, this thing right here is compiling the data that you're freely giving out constantly.
Yeah, we're very willy-nilly with all our privacy, myself included. I mean, we do this podcast every week. There's, hundreds of hours at this point of us talking and use our voices and our image. They could even make me talk from an old man face now, apparently, at this point.
Yeah. And to be honest, man, my justification, my rationalization for all of this is like, if there are a billion people out there to choose who to steal information from, I got to be pretty far down that fucking list of
no one gives
priorities.
A shit about
us. Right.
Like, it's not gonna happen.
And that's why I don't worry about it. There are so many more successful, more interesting, more whatever people that like. I'm the last thing that they're fucking worried about. So yeah, that's kind of where I fall on it. Anything else before we move on?
I feel like that pretty much sums it up.